we're good.
Okay, so we're gonna start the Monday, March 24th Economic Board meeting at 5:32. All in favor? Great. And the first subject will be discussed moving forward with the REI.
All right, take it away. First of all, Claire, Alejandro, and Madge, can you all hear us? Okay, beautiful. Wanted to make sure that that was true. So my name is Emily Ennis. I'm from Ennis Associates, as is my colleague Madge Pate, who's listening in from home. And we are helping out with the REI for 150 Center Street. So I'm going to talk you through that. We're also joined by Claire O'Neill from Mass Development and Alejandro Lopez also from Mass Development, and they are funding this study. Just so they know, you know who everybody is on this meeting. Thank you all for having us. We really appreciate it. So I'm going to start off by sharing my screen, and assuming that you've let me, which you have, thank you very much. And that is not the file I wanted to share. Hang on. It's because it did not open. There we go. Perfect. Now I'm going to share my screen. All right. Excellent. You all know where 150 Center Street is. Hey.
We just got started.
How are you?
Literally just got started.
Hi.
Hi, how's it going?
Good.
So just again, I'm Emily Ennis, I'm part of the consultant team, and we're joined by my colleague Madge and Claire and Alejandro from Mass Development. So these are just the team that's working on this. I'm going to walk through just very high level of the site, just for anybody who listens in later. And what we've been doing, and then we're going to talk about the difference between an REI and an RFP and why we're doing this as an REI. So REI stands for Request for Expressions of Interest, or For Interest is the other way. RFP is a Request for Proposal. So, but you have different reasons. So the town purchased 150 Center Street in 2014. It was it hasn't really been developed in terms of buildings, but it has been a site that's been used. It was used for sand and gravel pits. It's been used for athletic fields, sort of informal ones. It's been used for storage. There have been some visioning work done on this. So as part of the comprehensive plan, and then as part of the feasibility study, both of them being published in 2023. It's about 61 or so acres. Right now, it's mostly open space, undeveloped land. There's a combination of forests, there's protected lands, there's wetlands. It's got the unique aspect of being almost flat, which for, looking at any use makes life a lot easier. And of course, it's connecting to conservation land, to trails there. It's not that far away from the Groveland Community Trail. So in terms of assets that might make it attractive for some sort of use that also combines recreational, it's very strong, right? So the question during the visioning was what that use would be. So this diagram here shows that we've been talking about, at least in the feasibility study, which I was a sub-consultant to Niche Engineering on, we kind of indicated this area that was a preferred area for development. It was the flattest, it's the furthest away from abutting parcels, it's the furthest away from the protected area for the turtle habitat. So that's the bright green. We also looked at, okay, you could add a little bit more and you could add a little bit more. So the acceptable land in sort of that yellowish orange, it's possible add-on. Then you've got that more purpley color. Okay, we could probably do that, but it wasn't the real focus. We really wanted that central area right off the existing drive into there. So I mentioned there was community engagement. We had a three-meeting session back in 2023, actually here at Town Hall. There was the feasibility, that was in 2022. The feasibility study also had some sessions. Both had online surveys that included questions about this, and we were present at Groveland Day for both 2022 and 2023, discussing both projects in 2023. And the key principles that came out in the feasibility study were the ones that you see here. So How do you provide access to the land, to the nearby community, including the neighbors, but also including Groveland itself, and the amenities and trail systems? How do you preserve the natural species habitat, protect the aquifer, but also think about increasing tax revenues? So what's the balance, basically? And that was a lot of the conversation. The feasibility study also had a detailed market study. It found that there was a need for more ownership units, but also more rental units. And there was some demand, but not a lot for non-residential uses. So the type of road there was, we don't want to pull away from Elm Square. We don't want to pull away from other parts of Groveland that have some businesses. So it would have to be something that was a destination that worked well with residential. So what we're looking at is a request for expressions of interest. And that basically goes out and says to the development world, look, we've got this property. We, the town of Groveland, have this property. We've been studying what to do with it. We know what the market is, but what does it mean to, for you as a developer, what would you do with this? Look at what we've done and tell us what you'd be interested in doing. So we pulled together as the text, the schemes that were already in there, the idea of improving the site. Again, what came out of the feasibility study was a mixed-use development that had a little bit of everything, but that included community access and trails. And so as part of the feasibility study, we had multiple development concepts. There's a lot of different things you could do on this site. The feasibility study narrowed it down to one option because that's what you do when you have a study, but we're not precluding the ability to go and look at some of those other options. So an REI is non-binding. That means the town can go out, it can ask the development community will come back with stuff, but the town's not bound to follow that. And I think that's really important. This is really an information gathering technique. We want to know what the market interest is. Even from 2023, the market's changed a little bit. So knowing what they're thinking out now in terms of the development community. And it's not a formal bid, it's not a proposal. Again, it's just information gathering. An RFP is a formal proposal. It's governed under 30B, which is what the state uses for disposition of all sorts of land and services, and also the acquisition of that. What happens is with an RFP, the town goes out, developers make a proposal, the town selects a preferred developer, and then they negotiate and say, okay, we're gonna sell you this land or dispose of this land to you under these conditions, which is a land disposition agreement. So typically you do a request for expression of interest, and then you use it to guide the next step, which could be an RFP. Even with an RFP, it's possible to say, look, when you put one out, you put it out with criteria. You say, this is what we're looking for. This is how we're going to evaluate. You can get non-responsive proposals, and you can still, as the town, you're not bound to choose one of the proposals you receive if they're all non-responsive. But you want to have a really good reason for not selecting somebody. But as I said, the REI is really about gathering information. It's a sort of an important, especially I think, for a site like this, where a lot of different people have a lot of different plans and thoughts around it, it's a really important step to do the REI before doing the RFP. So here we are today. We want to talk with you about the text of the REI. We're also looking for input from a working group of people who will just give us more comments. Then we go back, we edit it. Right now it's all text. We're going to put in the pretty pictures afterwards, but I like to get the text done first. The town will then release it. It's publicly available, so anybody can respond, but we're also going to send it out to development teams that we think have done a good job with something of this size and scale and with the same sort of interests, and just see what they respond. Then we evaluate those responses, and then this process stops at that point. We sort of pull everything together, give the town something that has an evaluation and talk it through. And at that point, then the town can say, okay, we've looked at this. Yes, we'd like to do an RFP. And if so, that would be a separate response. So again, this doesn't require that the town do the RFP. So I stop there, and while I am loading up the actual text, are there any questions? Or Claire or Alejandro, do you have any comments on your end? that you'd want to share. And if there aren't any questions, I'll just go through the RFP quickly.
So the property's under the care and custody of the select board?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are they procedurally, are they gonna be the ones asked to kind of sign off on the REI before anything's issued? Well, I assume we're advising.
Advisor for the proposal, correct.
Okay. Any idea when that's gonna go to them to finalize it?
Put it on the next agenda in April.
I think we had it coming in, we've got it scheduled for coming in after town meeting. Obviously, a lot of things going on before then, so.
And the conservation has no restriction on the green zone, or they do? The area she's talking about,
I
Yeah.
believe there is a restricted area, conservation restriction
No.
in place.
outside the area that we're thinking about.
Right, the
That's
green,
fine.
bright green side area,
Green side's pretty
yes,
clear.
yeah, that's
And
clear.
is there any money, when I did this before, there was the money that we borrowed to buy it. It needed so many years to release before we can use it,
Correct.
and we all set to go ahead with that?
In 2025, this year,
2025,
it
okay,
will reach
perfect.
maturity and we will be able to pay it off.
All right, okay, good. So that won't hold us back.
Right,
Good.
all right, so let me just share the text. Now, this looks remarkably boring for an REI, because it is just the text. You come up, there we go. So as I said, what we usually like to do is get the text set, and then what we'll do is we'll pull from the feasibility study, our own pictures of the site, Andy Streetman sent us pictures of the site. So, an RFP is a lot more complex than an REI, because when you're doing the RFP, you have terms and conditions, you would have evaluation criteria, you'd have the conditions of the proposal. This is much smaller, right? We want to point people to the work that's already been done. We want to let them know that there's some opportunities out there. We don't want to constrain them too much. I think we talked about this balance of making sure that the REI is responsive to the work that's already done. We can't go out and give us a unicorn farm because we haven't asked for a unicorn farm. So they should look at what we've done, but within that, they can change up a number of things, right? Because we really want to know what they're interested in doing. So there's a short introduction, there's an offering an opportunity that explains what we're doing and why we're doing it. We call out the community goals from the feasibility study because, and those are the ones that I've already called out. But in addition, we also have the idea of a mixed use neighborhood, architectural elements sympathetic with New England development patterns. We don't want a Disney World, but we do want it to be consistent with, the geographic area it's in. We talked in here about the development scheme that was in there, but we also say, look, you can go beyond that. We would like them to submit in May. So that's why getting this done in April from the select board's point of view, submit in May. We'll have a site walk. Questions due. These dates were just put in for, having a guideline in there. But we would have a site walk, answers to any questions, and the expressions of interest due. We note that these are public documents, very important. We had an RFP recently where the people who submitted were not aware that they were public documents. So we like to call that out. A little bit about the history, the planning process, and we're going to give this to you for your own review. Links to the site. We also have, so Niche, when they did the feasibility study, they created what's called a story map, which is an online repository of all the maps. We are also putting this online in a story map, so the same maps and the images will be available there. So people can either respond from the PDF that the town will send out or from the story map. So we just call out the bullet point to the site characteristics. I do want to call out that we've got the regional contacts. We've also got the environmental contacts about the priority habitat and the fact that it's adjacent to conservation land and there's the opportunity for a trailhead that would support a lot of different goals that were brought up: utilities, soils, topography, and then the zoning, noting that it's currently industrial district, but there was an overlay district that was proposed for the site, so the zoning could be negotiable. Summarize very quickly the market analysis. Again, you want this to be short and sweet because you're trying to capture their attention, and summarize very quickly the regulatory contacts. So again, our REIs are really about it's a marketing document, right? You want to put this land in the best position to get a response to, and then have them do their own due diligence before they submit. And that's pretty much it. So, as I said, we've built the online story map already. But we want to get the text right before we update that. And then essentially the same information will be in both places. Same images will be in both places and see what we get.
So you must have like folks that look out for these type things and you
Yeah.
must know where you're thinking of sending them or having people come to you and what have you.
Yeah, so that's the real advantage of having Mass Development
Yeah.
as a partner in this, is not only
They
are
have-
they funding it, but they have a group,
Yeah.
and then Madge, previous to working with us, she's worked with development teams, I've worked with development teams on projects. So we're gonna put our heads together and come
Right.
up with a good list, and then by making it publicly available, absolutely, there are developers who look out for this.
And do you think having mass development involved, that will help us?
Absolutely,
ultimately Down the
yeah,
road
yeah.
with financing and all that good stuff.
I think Mass Development is a huge resource in how to do this. I hope they're blushing, but we worked with them on a bunch of different projects.
Right.
And just having their technical expertise is really helpful on this to know which way to point us.
And I know Rebecca was talking about the land next to this, which
Yeah,
could be ultimately possibly tapped into the Valley Screw property, which we're trying to get it cleaned up, but if mass development's involved in it and somehow we could tie that in down the road to help, we could possibly use that piece of land tied into this one.
yeah, and we talked about that in the feasibility study,
Yeah.
of course, is the idea that there might be an additional.
Piece of land.
Exactly. So I don't think we haven't so far really highlighted it in this REI yet
Right.
because you're not quite ready there. So, but certainly that's the sort of thing that after the REI, you could go and do an RFP
Right.
and say, hey, now we
Yeah.
have two things. What else
Make
could
it
you do
bigger.
with it? Yeah. Any other questions?
So the REI and an RFP are completely distinct. You explained all that.
Yeah.
So basically, whether a prospective developer responds to an REI or not, no bearing on any future RFP. They, be a publicly bid. So whether they respond or don't respond, they don't gain a leg up like in a potential future bid process, correct?
Right, because the bid process is absolutely separately. They would from their own perspective, because they'd already know the
Of
site and
course,
they'd know
yeah.
what to think about it. But in terms of the town's not obligated to send it out only to the people who responded to the REI. You get to do the full public bid process.
So is there besides the benefit they would gain of kind of doing some advanced due diligence, it's really, they're doing a service to the town. Is that fair to respond to it?
I think that's fair. I think it also can it's one of the reasons for doing a positioning for a marketing document is that it gets them excited about it. So that's a way that they can start tracking, oh, the town is going to do this. We want to be on top of it. We want to be ready to go. I have seen RFPs that are just really stellar proposals coming out of those. And I've seen ones where the development team maybe didn't have quite enough time to respond and didn't put their best foot forward. And I think with the REI, if they're really interested, then they're going to be watching. And certainly you should reach out to them when you're doing the RFP. Say you responded to the REI. Are you still interested? We're doing that. So, I think it's a win for the town. You get a little bit more certainty about what people are looking for. You can then, as a town, decide if that meets your needs and how you'd structure the evaluation criteria and the RFP based on that. For example, if somebody came with, we're only going to do this, and you say, but you know what? This is really important to us. You can put that into the criteria and kind of change what comes to you, but at least you do that knowing what the market's looking for.
So then looking at this REI, do they know that the statement, the housing and whatever is involved, you people are involved, they'll know going forward. all
Yeah,
of these
exactly.
Pieces are involved.
Yes.
We're all working as a.
Oh, yeah, they'll see the logos at the bottom. They'll
Okay,
see, yes,
so They're
exactly.
gonna know that they have some good interest because we're already working on it as a team, kind of.
Absolutely.
They join in and it's gonna be better for them, hopefully.
Well, and you know, the way that I thought about the feasibility study, when working on it with Niche and RKG was this idea that anything like that is showing that the town is serious
Yeah.
about doing something,
Yeah.
right? They've been doing the planning, they've been doing the work. It's not like.
Invested.
Exactly,
They're not
absolutely,
invested.
yeah, they're not, oh, we've got some land, we ought to do something about it, throw it out to the
Right.
market. No, we've really been,
Investment in it at this point.
yeah.
Obviously, you know, we haven't read it, so we'll need to read
Yes.
it and understand.
Yeah.
But does it call for prospective developers to give, is it kind of setting out where they may see opportunities for this site, or is it calling for them to provide any kind of like critical review of the concept plan that was done?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's more about what would you do with this site? Tell us your concept for the site. I think we acknowledge that there was a plan, but I mean, as you know, whenever you do these feasibility studies, it's always a picture of what was happening at the time.
Yeah.
It's only been 2 years ago, but it feels like a lifetime. So I think we'd really like to see what people are interested in doing now.
I'm glad to hear you say that. And I hate to be Monday morning. I had some concerns about the feasibility study, specifically the configuration of the non-residential was like set way back from the road.
Mhm.
I think this is gonna be a tough site for non-residential by any measure because the traffic counts are fairly low. And if it is gonna work, it's gonna need to be visible to drive-by traffic. And so I think that was probably done with neighbors involved and them not wanting to see it. But I think that there's just a natural tension between kind of neighbors who don't want to see the development and developers who need you to see the development in order to have visibility. So it's just something that comes up anytime with retail.
Yeah, you know, it was a really
Or
interesting point. It wasn't completely that idea of not being seen, but more that the access to the trails is in the
Yeah, we
back.
want to tie it in.
Yeah, and so if you've got the residential in the front and you're looking at some sort of destination commercial
Mhm.
as opposed to drive-by
That's what they
commercial,
really.
then you want to put that in the back near the trails and
Okay.
pull them into that. Yeah,
Tie
so,
everything together.
yeah, so it was really
Nice
more about
idea.
that than not being able to be.
Okay.
seen.
Trying to make it more of a, you said it earlier, destination point.
Yeah, yeah.
Like maybe like a coffee house or a brew factory or a coffee factory or something. People would walk the trail and ultimately want to go in there and sit and what have you, even though there might be some residential or maybe on top or around or farther away. But they weren't worried too much about not being able to see it from the road because it's gonna be a destination point.
Yeah,
And we
exactly.
know that when the study comes back, it
Right.
could completely change, you never know.
They may say, hey, you know what, that's not the right place. And I think
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to stress that those concept plans, there's 1,000 different ways you can lay
Yeah,
this out, or at least a couple of hundred. But the one I think that we ultimately settled on was that idea is that you've got this nice little residential community that can then walk across the street.
Yeah.
And you've got this cluster of community and commercial uses.
Yeah.
And then you've got the trails, so you
And
kind of.
they've done that in Salem, New Hampshire.
Mhm.
If you go up to the, it's huge, but, what is it?
Tuscan.
Tuscany
Tuscan
Village.
Village,
And
yeah.
they have all the residential around the back of it. That's a big, that's a big
Right.
place. But this could be something maybe on that idea.
And
And
you
if the
think,
developer looks at this, it's gotta make sense to them to do it, or they're not gonna,
right,
it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. So they're gonna look at it like, wow, I can do this with it, I can do that with it, period.
yeah, and does it come back with something like, okay,
Yeah.
we're gonna do mostly residential, but we're going to have the little
Yeah.
kiosk with the hot chocolate next to the trail parking so
Yeah,
that people can
something.
go in the winter and do cross-country skiing or snowshoeing or whatever and come back and get hot chocolate.
Right.
Maybe that's the extent of it, or maybe it's, you know, a little brewery cafe that can serve the residents and the rest of the
Mhm.
area. But as you say, it's that
So
dust.
it'd be interesting to see what they come back with.
I know, it actually will be fascinating. So, you know, we all know that there's a huge demand for housing. And, well, actually, I think there was one for the United States. It just came out
Oh, yeah.
in the US is 1.5 million units under house.
Yeah.
So, which
But I can
actually
tell you
seems a
this,
little
there's a
right.
huge demand right now.
Yes,
I'm telling you, there's a huge demand right now for families to have places to
Yeah.
go with their family on Sunday.
Yeah.
Like these, farms. I
Yeah.
mean, pick your own pumpkins, you know, just pick your own strawberries, stuff like that. I mean, there's a huge demand, people wanting to not go to the mall anymore. They want to go with the family in the air and be out walking around. Like the one in Aintree. What's that one in Aintree? Cider Hill.
Yeah.
It's like that. There's a
Yes.
huge demand.
Yeah, and we've heard from people in a lot of different communities, Alejandro and Claire, I don't know if you've been getting the same thing, but people asking for these gathering
Yeah,
spaces.
exactly.
And, you know, something, so I think that the concept of a neighborhood that because it has some sort of destination is still integrated with the community. I mean, I think there's a risk. And it's something that I know we talked about during the feasibility study. There's a risk that you just do development there and the people who live there don't have to interact with the rest of the community.
Right.
But if you create something that drives gathering, maybe there's a possibility of integrating the new community with the existing community. And
Right.
so, but again, the REI tells us whether or not that would actually work. Sure, there's numbers. We can show that it would work on a site plan.
Yeah.
We can show that there's demand for these things, but it'll be the developer that tells us whether or not it can actually work. So-
This is gonna be a silly question, but the roadways in there, are they gonna be public or private?
Well, then that goes to what the uses are,
Okay.
right? So I think, and that also goes to what you do in the RFP process. So you can say, let's just say that all of the developers come back and all they want is residential, but you still want access there for the community. So you could require that at least one of the roads be public to allow for access to the
Okay.
trail. That could be a criterion in the
Okay.
RFP. So, and I think that becomes, again, that balance of what do you want to have happen there?
Okay.
Becca, am I correct when I say this? Wasn't the town kind of not want no residential in there?
I think that a lot of the feedback that we heard through
They wanna
multiple
do something
engagement, whether
in
it be
there.
the feasibility study or the comprehensive master plan, was some type of mixed
Yeah.
use and something that did have a focus on a
Yep.
community gathering
Yep.
area and satisfying all of the.
I would be surprised if something doesn't come back that way, because I only have, I'm on that road, I'm about to
Yeah.
do
Mhm.
it. And I have a little farm wagon that my
Yep.
wife and my son sell flowers and stuff out of there and what have you. And more people come to that wagon and like, we try to find these places and we can go like we sell pumpkins in the fall. They come there just for pumpkins because they wanna go. And, you know, I feel bad, cause it's like, it's a little teeny place, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? But they're like trying to find places to go, like Connors Farm over there in Danvers, big place, they go in there, they have all
Yep.
kinds of stuff. I mean, you never know, you might find someone that,
Tender crop in Newbury.
Yeah,
where I live,
exactly,
that's
yeah,
Popular
yeah.
on Colby until they stopped letting them do the sunflowers at
Yeah.
quite the scale that they used
I
to have
know.
it. So, because the market is insane.
They stopped.
insurance,
My understanding,
Traffic.
it was, I know the traffic, they really slowed it down. I wouldn't be surprised. for
and the police
insurance.
detail was costing.
Had you ever
great.
been, have you ever been over there?
Well, I have been there
It's
when
crazy.
we first moved to this area 5 or 6 years ago. We loved it.
Yeah.
And then I've noticed since then, like,
Yeah, you only
the
can go
roads
so
all
much
like
acreage
marked,
now.
no
Yeah.
parking this side, and but I never knew the backstory to that.
Yeah, I remember the first year I moved here, same thing, got caught in the traffic and I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Oh, sunflowers.
Yeah.
Wonderful
Over
pictures of my daughter when she was
I
like,
don't know if you saw this, Steve, but over in Kimball Farm, this guy went in there last year or the year before, and he does like a four-wheeling like track in the spring.
Oh, wow.
And he killed it, and he's gonna go back again this year, so, and he only rents it for
Yeah.
like a weekend, you know what I mean, but there's all kinds of different,
And the one in Amesbury is
Oh, yeah,
huge.
yeah,
there you go.
And a
there's
couple
a
of
million
things.
different ideas.
And it's
So
fabulous,
I would be
yeah.
surprised if something doesn't come back,
Yeah,
We don't have anything here. I wanna see some restaurants or something.
but this is it, this,
Eating,
yeah, but
you
you'll,
know,
I think you're gonna see it here, I think
I
this
hope
REI will, I'm
Yeah,
it's
like a
the
farm,
opening of
like
the
a
door.
farm to table restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This brewery.
Yeah.
You know, table and, you know, I have.
And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to tie the rail trail in with this and everything, so hopefully we get some.
can
You
can
can
you
walk the
imagine
trail.
like hopping on your bike and
Yep.
riding along and
Yep,
coming
go in
here,
there.
you get to go to a brewery.
And that's gonna be
Run some
tied in with
trails.
Cable in the next 3 years.
Yeah,
Cable's gonna start working on their rail trail,
Yeah.
which will end up tying into us, so,
Georgetown is tied in already.
they're working on it.
and actually where I live is supposed to be tied into Georgetown in another couple of years. I
Yeah.
think we're on the tip for
Yeah.
like 27.
Okay.
You just
It's all
walk,
gonna be
oh,
one big
people can
thoroughfare.
take, oh, let's go down there. They got the best restaurant, you know.
Yeah.
Active people, not like us. Well, maybe you guys. Oh, look at that, Bill.
I'm gonna work out that biking out here, so, Alejandro, anything on your end to add?
Appreciate the enthusiasm. Well, first, thanks for giving us the time. Very nice to
Wait a
meet
minute,
you.
Hey, Alejandro, we're turning this out.
Better. Try now.
But I appreciate the enthusiasm regarding retail and having that third space. I'm from Haverhill, so I'm pretty familiar with the area, and yeah, I do think having that availability of a retail spot, especially where 150 Center Street is in relation to its neighboring communities, can be a pretty attractive hub, right? So I'm excited for your feedback and for the review. Just keeping in mind as well that this program, this grant cycle, is the deadline for it is the end of our fiscal year. So June 30, that's the day that we're working towards. So just keeping that in mind as we progress through these next couple of phases, it would be, critical. So thanks for that.
For the RFP.
Just showing you the room. Thanks.
To have it, so we can get the grant, is that for the?
So the
RFP.
REI first, and then we
Okay.
would, if we wanted to move forward, we would go for the RFP.
Do we have to have that in by?
We would have to
30?
submit an application before, I forget the deadline, I think it's in June 6th, I want to say.
June 30th, you just said.
So we have to do the REI and.
Well, the
Finish the
application for the
REI,
next.
But we
yeah,
could
for the
start
next
the
phase.
application for an
For the next
RFP.
Okay, so we're kind of crunch on time.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if the timeline was enough to give prospective developers time, but now I
They
think I
have till May,
understand
don't they?
why it's.
Yeah, I think for the REI, yes, just because they're not submitting the full proposal, like, we've asked them for a sketch concept plan.
Okay,
If they were doing a full proposal, just so you know, if and when you get to that stage for a full proposal, I would recommend that it's on the street for at least 3 months.
Yeah,
So you want to
yeah.
give them plenty of time to think about it. But this, you're really asking for, hey, give us your top ideas. So,
so it's a sketch, and is it like a development program that they're also like
Yeah.
roughly square footage or?
roughly square footage,
Okay.
so.
All right.
So yeah, I think we're gonna give a week for reviews.
Yes.
And then we'll put everything together, get it to the select board, get it on.
So we don't need to get to the select board yet.
So we have the working group that we kind of created to review the document that we just went over this evening. It's not very long, not very detailed per se, but we had, I believe, select person Becky Boucher, and then I believe Angus, if he's able to read the document from here, and
Yeah.
then Chris Goodwin from the planning board to look at the document and add comments, but then the document would also go out to the Economic Development Committee, as we discussed this evening. So if there's any additional comments from all of you, you're welcome to provide those, and then we'll assemble those comments, we'll get everything finalized, and then that's when we'll.
So this goes from here to the other boards, or comes back here? Where does it go first?
So we're just gonna submit any of the comments and finalize the document, and then it will go, we'll take it to. the
Will we
select
submit it to
board,
them, or
and
it's
then-
gonna go to them?
It's gonna go to them after your comments, it'll go to
Exactly.
them.
Come here for comments, then go there.
Yeah.
Yes,
Perfect.
exactly.
But it sounds like we won't convene as a body before that, so I think
Doesn't sound like it.
it sounds like you'll send it around. It
Yeah,
sounds like if everyone can individually mark it up. is that-
exactly,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I just remembering REI, it's tight, it's sort of light, you're just saying. You want them to be conceptual, so you're giving that kind of marketing feel to they should be reading the plan, so you don't wanna. Kind of like you don't want to extract too much from the feasibility study, but also not too little, so we're trying to really hit the high
Right.
points.
It's not a very lengthy document, and
Yeah.
again, all of the other additional studies that we've done, whether they be the comprehensive master plan or the feasibility study, are links, so if you wanted to click on them and learn more, you could, but the document itself that you're reviewing isn't that
Yeah,
lengthy.
exactly. The town's putting up a web page, so we can direct them to that web page for all of the detail. We'll have a story map that does the same thing, and then they'll submit it electronically, so that makes it easier for them. They don't have to spend a lot of time and money printing things. And then that will give us the chance to see what they have, and then we'll spend some time after we get it back, just analyzing it. And saying, this is what we see. We might actually, I was just thinking, we might want to add a question maybe about what challenges they see. Could be really interesting.
Yeah, that would.
So.
Okay.
Why would you not want to develop on 60+ acres with a lot of flat land?
Right.
And no buildings to take down? I mean, we could probably name a couple right off the top of our head. The road would be one of them, obviously, and we don't want to reconstruct that road. So that will limit some things, but
We have the, what is it, water and sewer he daily brought through there?
Yes, you have sewer in the, and
Water.
that just got brought.
So that
water
can be
the
tied
right
in.
way.
Yeah,
We'll put there.
exactly. Yeah. So
And
you
then,
put there, and there's plenty of land without the conservation land,
Yeah.
so that won't.
I don't think the road's gonna be an issue, and you can bring Havel in one side, you can bring Georgetown and Newburyport the other side, so it's in the
Yeah.
middle. So I think it's access wise, we're okay.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's that many neighbors on that road that will complain, maybe the beginning of center, but
It's light down there. There's
if
no-
it's sold to the town the right way, it's gonna help offset our taxes and what have you. That's the way it's gonna have to be done. It's gonna have to be sold to the town the right way. We need it. I mean,
Yes.
they know that every time we're going around, we're looking for money for the budget and.
Mhm.
I mean, even Georgetown, they have a huge budget and they're
Yes,
still going for an override.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying, this year, so we need it in the worst way, and people gotta realize it. You know, they're all complaining about the taxes going up right now, crazy, everyone's, well, why? Because we have nothing to offset it, we need to
Right.
get something to offset it.
well, you
That's why
have,
we're here.
I mean, you have this. This is a unique asset for the
Right.
towns to have this much available land.
Right,
And to have the opportunity that it is town owned.
Yep.
You've got certain goals for it as a town and, the ability to steer the development of the land, not just through zoning, but
Right.
through an actual land disposition.
I know, and unfortunately, this land back when it was available,
Uh-huh,
it was gonna be used to have our own school system. And the last minute, the town people voted it down, which
ah,
was stupid, but anyway, we were gonna break away from the school.
regional.
right.
And then
Yes.
we're gonna put the town fire department, all that in there, that got broken away. And then we talked about developing it,
Mhm.
and then everyone got scared into its conservation, it's turtle land, it's this, it's that, and they scared them and scared them and scared them. Bought it.
Yeah.
Now, they wish they never did it. Most people.
Question about that. The REI is gonna go out to just specific contractors. It's not gonna be open to the public.
No, it is open to the
Okay,
public. Yeah,
all right.
Bunch of
absolutely.
people.
All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, like
Lot.
certain contractors look for those things. They'll know. They'll
Absolutely.
look. They'll put in there.
So it's posted
Okay.
on the central register and,
Okay.
and that all is like the, one-stop shopping for.
Okay.
It's everywhere.
Like that.
And being on mass development.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we'll also email it to specific developers that we've seen. Actually, Alejandro and I were talking this afternoon at our check-in, is the idea of picking developers who've done similar
Yep,
size sites,
Yep, make sure. they
done
get it.
similar
Idea.
mixed use, and then that way we know we're sending it to people who might be interested.
Mhm.
So,
One thing that obviously people will see as a risk factor is the fact that zoning's not in place yet.
yeah,
And sometimes I'm thinking of yard, I was thinking about 40R.
right.
But there are plenty of instances there. I think of Market Street down in Linfield where National Development had the property under agreement. They entered a development agreement with the town
Yes,
saying that if the town approves the zoning to allow X 100,000 square feet of retail and X hundred housing and all of this, we, National Development, will commit to X, Y, and Z infrastructure improvement. In this instance, where the town is the landowner, I'm just wondering, and this, I know this had several steps,
mhm,
but I wonder, is there some scenario, because that's going to be a risk for people looking at this. They may have a vision, but the odds that their vision fits
mhm.
with the current zoning.
What is the zone?
It's industrial at the
Yeah, I thought it
moment,
was
so,
Yeah,
But-
but
so we
but that's
so we-
not.
yeah.
like,
You can't,
We talked in the feasibility plan about an overlay district, so they will see in the feasibility plan that the town's already discussing this.
Mhm.
I think one thing to consider is, depending on what comes back, does the town move forward with amending the zoning
Hmm.
before sending out the
But-
RFP? And that could be an
You
interesting
can't supersede
concept.
residential under, like zoning's the worst case scenario, and doesn't residential fall minor under that? Don't work that way?
No,
Industrials, yeah.
But didn't they change that to residential?
no, it's.
They never did?
So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, your other option, if it were residential only,
Yeah.
there's always such a thing as a friendly 40B, so
Yeah.
you don't have
Yeah,
to do that.
Exactly.
But the problem with that is you're not necessarily going to get the commercial aspects of
Exactly.
it.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily going to get the recreational
Right,
tie-ins that
exactly.
you're looking for. So that's where if the REI gives you sufficient.
That's again,
information,
something that
yeah.
it's gonna have to be sold to the town, and it's gonna have to be
Yeah.
told to the town the right way, that
Yes.
you want it, you're gonna have to make this work. This is a good thing. It's gonna bring in X amount of dollars, et cetera, et cetera. Someone's gonna have to sell it.
You know, the other thing with.
When it comes, I know
Yeah,
we're ahead of
yeah.
schedule, but when it comes.
But the other thing to think about, again, when talking with the town is that the town has two options here, two ways of control, right?
Yep.
One way is the zoning,
Mhm.
which they're used to, and you know, a lot of people get concerned about zoning because they think, oh, what am I gonna get out of this? But the town's also going to have the land disposition agreement, and the
Mhm.
land disposition agreement is going to be a legal agreement between
Right.
the town
Yep.
and the preferred developer. And that can get a lot more specific.
Right.
So the zoning will create the framework,
Exactly.
but it's the LDA that the land disposition agreement that really gets into. the
And
specifics.
hopefully, we say a prayer,
Yes.
that whoever decides to do this, we get a good scenario
Mhm.
with it, and the town people are all on board with it. They're loving it. Oh my God,
Yeah.
this is gonna be great. This is gonna be
Yeah,
perfect. Groveland's gonna be known for that. I'm probably dreaming, but
yeah,
Groveland will be known for this. Let's do it. You know what I mean? That's what we're hoping.
yeah, and
It's
that,
probably
you
a big
know,
hope, but
again, jumping forward to the RFP, but that's why the REI is such a good step
Exactly.
first, is the RFP. The way we do them usually when we do them is we've got this grid or this
Yep.
table of criteria. It's not advantageous, highly advantageous.
Right.
And you put down what you're looking for, and then a developer's gonna look at that and they're gonna say, okay, I really want to do this.
Yep.
How much can I get into that highly advantageous category? And I think knowing, you know, what we're hoping is that the REI will give us the information to help with that.
perfect.
So the key, of course, is, you know, you want to make it flexible enough that you're going to get a developer who knows that, I mean, they need to make a profit because otherwise they're not going to do it, right? But
Right.
the town needs to get what it wants out of it, and it's always that balance.
I think we're in a
So,
good position right now, the way the taxes are going. I think we're in a real good position, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I mean, I think this is a good time to do it because people are thinking, you know what I mean? We gotta do something here soon. You know, they don't wanna have a 35-gallon rubbish barrel or 36 or 38.
You
We're
know,
all arguing over rubbish barrels. Let's do something soon here, people.
so according to what you gathered from the townspeople, on Groveland Day and whatever, they went more towards residential or more towards commercial use?
I think it was definitely mixed
Mixed
use. I think it was a little bit more of a spread I don't think anybody wanted it. I don't recall anybody wanting it to be all residential. There's definitely that mix. I think you do still have some people who don't want anything done with it at all.
Yeah,
Because they want to preserve it, and,
Yeah.
and I can understand where they're coming from, but I think to your point, there are a lot of voices coming up saying, look, we need to do something to benefit the town
Yeah.
with
and
this.
there is a significant portion of it that nothing's gonna be done with it, so
Right.
Yeah,
there's that too, you know, and,
yeah,
you know.
And it's surrounded by 100+
Yeah.
conservation restricted land.
Yeah, so.
yeah, but I think if you can, you know, be clear with people, there is protected habitat, there is additional
Yeah.
area that could be conserved and kept as green space, that you're opening up the conservation land for people to use and
Right.
allowing access, that could
Safe
address a lot.
access.
Safe access,
And
I
when
think
the
that could
ultimate-
address a lot,
At the ultimate end of the day,
yes.
when this comes forward, someone has to stand up strong enough to try to get the town understanding exactly what the plan is
Right,
and negotiate, number one, and number two, be able to tell the town people, look forward, you know what I mean? Look forward, this is what we're gonna get out of this. It's going to help us, but you gotta get someone, you can't have like one party here fighting with this party here. It's-
right.
And I've sat there and listened to, and it's just like, it all gets, listen, it's gonna work, trust me, you know what I mean? But
I think
you
we're
know, you
looking at her.
No, I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know who does it, but I'm saying that's the biggest thing, is if it can be sold right,
Right,
it will happen. You know,
Yeah.
but
well, hopefully
We're in a good
the
step.
information we get from this
Yeah,
will help
exactly.
with that conversation,
I'm
so,
excited to hear it.
yeah, yeah.
So we'll send that out to the committee as well as the working group, and then
Mhm.
we'll reestablish those timelines, and
Yep.
then we'll just wait to hear back.
Sure.
Right.
Yep,
Great.
that'd be great, I think
Yeah,
it's a
thank you for all
faster.
your work and all- everyone on the cameras.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully we're moving
Thank
forward in
you.
the right direction. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you. Good night.
All
And a
right.
couple of people with technical difficulties on there as well, so.
We did as well, so we're.
Yeah, we're all good.
All right, so.
You're
You're all set, right?
Yep, yep.
Okay, perfect. So moving forward,
Thank you very much.
do we have any more topics to discuss on the subcommittees at all? Everyone.
I was just gonna, we were
Yep.
working on the parade.
Yep.
I think you were absent last thing.
Mhm.
It's going well. Since then, Steve Baker contacted me.
Mhm.
He is part of the cultural council. He
Mhm.
said they put money aside. He asked me to come in and talk about it, and they will put that money towards, whatever we need. So
Okay.
at least talk about it.
Yeah.
So, there's that. There's been talk, I've talked to a few people that are willing to donate and do floats. I have a gentleman that would like to, tow a float that does not have one. And,
Yep.
I think the library is looking for someone currently, so
Okay.
I was thinking about putting
Give me,
him on that.
give me the list of floats you get and we'll
Yep.
figure it all out.
Yep, so that's done, and yeah, it's moving forward in a good direction, I think. I still think, Angus sent me a pretty detailed list.
Probably more than you.
Actually, I mean, I started reading it, I was kind of like, all right, I'm gonna have to sit down here, I gotta,
I'm happy to sit with you and like
yeah.
customize that, cause
But
that
it's
was all
great.
like, that was what I could kind of dash off. and-
It's
and
great,
it's
it brought up a couple of like key things
There's
that
definitely
I,
some things that like I wouldn't have known until. you
Yeah.
get burned and then you're like, oh, okay, next time. And so hopefully there was some good advice on like, be sure to think of this, be sure, and
Yeah.
I'm happy to meet and like. go
yeah,
through
we
that.
probably should, but
Make
I
that
was kind of
kind
like,
of
whoa,
custom.
but
Yeah.
I'm still working through, I'm just taking a lot of notes and writing things.
How about at the
down.
next parade committee, if we can let Angus know, maybe he makes.
You know,
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, I was trying to help you out, dude. But yeah, you want.
Last time it sounded like you wanted to get involved.
Yeah, I'd like to help. I mean, and you know,
Yeah.
if that timing, I'm got a lot of night meetings, but but if that doesn't work out, I'm happy to get together
Sure.
with Steve offline and
Yeah.
just kind of
Definitely.
go through it and,
Yeah, and I came up with some more people, maybe like 10 people that just want to volunteer day up.
There you go.
Anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a couple of customers of mine, retired men.
Yep.
Just nothing going on.
Right.
I saw you're part of that, love to help out.
Right, right.
I'll come, my wife will come, my 3 neighbors will come, their wives will come, so there's like,
Yeah.
I think at least 7 or 8 people that are willing to help out, no charge, whatever we need, whether it's Groveland Day or the parade. So that's huge too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Yeah, I know.
So I think we're going in the right direction. Angus put like a big list together of the attendees. And I mean, I can tell you right now, none of them cost a dime. You know what I mean? And boy, if you look at that list, that's a pretty good parade. So
yeah. yeah.
right now I'm working because it's like, they have a lot to do with like horses. We don't really, I mean, we got Jimmy, but we don't have
Yeah.
a ton of horse community here.
Right.
But I'm working on contacting people like the Cubs.
Yeah, the one up on King Street, the pony. people.
Yeah, Jimmy, I gotta work for him on Wednesday. I could ask him.
Or like near North Rescue.
Yep.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
where-
I saw
where,
that.
you
He
know,
always does stuff.
Cause having a couple of horses, you just, one thing I don't think I put in, you gotta make sure if you do have horses that they're far
Someone
away from
cleans
the
up.
band.
Pickup, yeah. I
Pick
know.
up too, but also the noise.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
makes them-
And if you
spooks them.
have anyone with like a musket recreator, sometimes.
Get 'em away.
If you can keep away from the horses, these are the
Yeah.
kinds of things,
Yeah, yeah.
my first, I never would have thought of.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Key point, I mean, we don't wanna make the news like that.
Yeah, the horses get spooked and like.
What,
you know.
Sweet Paws?
I haven't talked to them, but
The business.
they did? You're kidding me.
The
I
rest?
just read it.
I was
Down
thinking,
here.
I was,
Yeah, right down here.
Yeah.
It's on Facebook the other day that they're having a, sell off. That's coming Saturday and Sunday. They're selling cages, they're selling everything, selling clothes, whatever.
Wow.
And someone told me, I was telling the story today, they said they think they're going online, but they're not, that building's no longer theirs.
oh, I was thinking that would be cool.
Just a bunch of dogs,
Yeah,
yeah, dogs
yeah.
walking through, yeah.
Maybe they're online, but they're not there no.
MSPCA, would they be?
Yeah, they'll-
I've never
they
had
came
it,
last
like,
time.
oh, okay.
Yeah, they got people to come out.
I was thinking about maybe up at, down at
They just
Essex
heard the
Tech
cat.
too.
Yeah.
They're in our,
Yeah.
Yes, if they were
Yeah.
activating
In our
the
thing.
cat,
seeing if they'll bring some
it'd be
animals.
pretty
And
good.
then-
The sheriff's department have their
Yeah,
trained
they came
dogs.
last time.
Yeah, my uncle's in the sheriff's department, so I'm gonna talk to him about that.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you was, I saw they bring their hand pump, cause they have like.
Yeah,
Vito?
yeah.
So is the Vito mobile?
I
No,
don't believe
no,
so.
What
no.
about on a trailer?
On a trailer, yeah. But to get them to take it out of that room could be a
Yeah,
project. They
yeah,
don't like
we're
moving that
pretty
thing for
eager to
anything.
get on that.
Rock could tow it.
I know.
Right up
Rock
there.
is like, he's the
Yeah.
beating heart of our,
Yeah,
We need to get
Like,
Rock
you know,
involved.
yeah, he is like big, he loves.
they'll handle like,
His hands
don't
up,
talk to
yeah.
him about that, talk to Danny. And
Yeah.
I'm talking about the rock.
I mean, I was just trying to be like, I thought,
I know.
I mean, didn't we pay to restore it? I mean,
I
it'd be
know,
nice
I
to,
know.
put it on a trailer. have
That was the
whole-
plan to have it, was to go in parades and stuff, but then it got locked in there and they weren't gonna ever move it again.
I just wasn't sure of the condition. I just thought.
Does it come out of that room anymore? There's not a big enough door anymore, is there? Out this way is the only way I heard, right?
They built the building around it?
I'm not
basically,
sure,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well,
Big argument, that was like 3 nights worth of meetings, so arguable, and then it had to be air conditioned, it had to be damp, like not so much
all
damp.
right, never mind. We will
It's a museum. It's supposed to be a
Yeah,
museum.
talk to the West Newbury boys and
Yeah.
bring the hand
Yeah.
pump thing. I mean, they take that and do competitions with
Right.
it.
Yeah,
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 no,
but
yeah.
again, Rock is he's the core of that group in West Newbury.
So we gotta talk to
So,
Rock. I know Rock
yeah,
real well.
Yeah.
And I did put the allocation together as part of the packet for the finance board and select board. So the finance board's meeting on Wednesday, if you want to be there either in person or Zoom to advocate.
It's gonna be
So the parade committee asked for me to put together an article for a free cash allocation to set aside for the budget in case fundraising was not as successful as they hoped to be.
Mhm.
So I put that together, but the committee said that they would be the ones to advocate for.
Yeah,
such.
I will be there.
So that's on
Wednesday
Wednesday.
at what time?
Their meeting starts at, I believe, 5 or 5:30. I will.
That's for the finance board?
Okay.
Yes.
4 or 5:30. Yep. I
How much
will
they
be
asking for?
there.
How much you gonna ask for?
The committee said to put in 20, so I put in 20.
You don't wanna go and fight with Sarah over the 20 grand?
I'm all set.
Oh, she's not.
No, no.
So that's the finance board, and
Yeah.
then it will have to go to the select board. The select board will be meeting on the warrant on the 31st.
10 would be great just to get something. 5 would even be.
Well, we could settle.
No, beat it up and spit it out,
Yeah.
go lower. I don't-
Well, whatever you don't use, obviously, the intent would be that it's for the 175th celebration. It would fall back to free
Right,
cash after
right,
the event. That's the argument. So if,
Yeah.
you fundraise and you're not as successful, but you needed extra money, you had that backing that you
right.
had that. I think that's the selling point, that it's
Right.
not to just use every
It's
last
not
penny.
locked up.
Exactly.
And then it can go back to your free
And-
cash throughout the
Exactly.
year,
And then it
yeah.
can be
Right.
used back by
Right
the
back.
taxpayer.
Yeah.
So I think that makes it a little bit more palatable.
Our expenses, West Newbury's expenses have been pretty low, other than our bicentennial when we had the army band, some things like that, but it's always been less than 5,000, but we haven't paid things like police overtime or
Yeah,
DPW.
$4,000, right?
Yes.
Like, if you counted that in, our
How do you
true
figure it?
expenses are higher. Those have been kind of paid out of the operating budget. So if the
Yeah.
expectation is that every penny is paid out of this, then, those day of expenses where you're paying the callback rate for your public works, your police, fire, that's where that is gonna drive
Yep.
your costs. Is the expectation that's all paid out of the parade
Yes,
budget?
there's no
Okay.
intent of paying it out of the operational.
Okay, so that's.
And it's only, again, because you do yours annually, this particular one is only, like we did the 150th, we're
Yeah.
doing the 175th. It's very specific to the time in which we're celebrating.
Yep.
If it's gonna be annual, then what we'll end up doing, and what Lisa Chandler has expressed interest in, is doing a more annual one on a smaller basis. So that she would then continue to fundraise and tie that into the Glow Run Day event that she puts on.
Well, I think cultural council is a great opportunity because they have, I don't know how it is in Groveland, but they have money and they get state money and
Yeah,
there's
he said-
opportunities. It's just that the people who know about it can get that.
Mhm.
And sometimes we see events go on and we're like, geez, that would have been perfect for cultural council, but people don't know about it.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that you guys are exploring that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know when they're meeting, but I'm hoping they meet before so we can.
Yeah,
figure
try to
out-
get like Steve.
Yeah, it would be nice even to have an idea before Wednesday. Cause what if he comes to you with 10,000 or something? I don't know.
They don't get that much.
Yeah, it's not that
They,
much
they
per
get
event.
$6,000 like a year.
Oh,
to
okay.
dispose of.
So
So it's not.
They might have.
I-
a
it
They have
might
an
be a little
earmark,
bit more
you
of
know.
that. I don't know why 6,000 sticking in my head, but the allocation that we get from the Massachusetts Cultural Council is not.
Okay, so you
anything of
have
that
an
nature,
idea,
yeah.
yeah.
And they may have some of that money already earmarked.
Yeah, they
You don't
got
know.
stuff that they're
And their
doing,
grants are usually like $1,000 here, $800 here, and it's not.
Right.
but it will help,
You
right?
should,
Yeah.
yeah, everything helps. I would ask him.
I asked him, he said, oh, we'll have you in, but I just want, it would be good to
Yeah.
have an idea of what's going on before you start
Okay,
beg, borrow, steal from everybody else. You know?
all right, so you good? Anyone else? Everyone else is good with the subcommittee stuff? All right,
I have not been able to meet with, my contact for the marijuana.
okay. So that's all set. And then we talked about 150 already. The only thing I wanted to say was. Did I go by it? I went by it. Valley Screw.
So we had a successful meeting with the EPA and Mass DEP. Mass DEP, after our conversation, seemed more willing to go out to the site to do an environmental assessment of the building as
Inside.
it is. Kind of exterior wise, and forgive me, but I'm forgetting the terminology, but what they can do is they can expedite and put in a request for the EPA to remove the building.
Yep.
Even though we don't own it.
Right.
There might not be enough money to have the entire building demolished with what they're able to offer. But it's far more of an offer than what we originally received.
Right,
And then they were very enthusiastic about trying to work with us to go over the original proposal
That they
and
set forth.
to take a little closer look at it, forgive the liens
Yep.
and work with the town in
right.
order to make sure that, we could all kind of
Come together.
exactly, and
Right.
what they talked about with the 33%, so proceeds was more so like, all right, so if, me and Annie are working on the proposal, our time could be considered what we
Part of
had to invest, so
Mhm.
that would lessen the amount of
Exactly.
money that we got back, so it really would end up being like a net zero at the end of the day in terms of what we would have to pay because of all of
Right.
the money and investment
So-
that the town would have to make to go forward.
One of my thoughts, and it's probably far-fetched, but can we say to them, we have X amount of dollars being held aside for taxes? Can you use that toward it? Saying that you can't kind of use that. No,
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
yeah, the
All right.
overlay doesn't work like that.
Okay,
I mean,
okay, all right.
we definitely.
I don't
made
know
the-
what it's well.
Yeah, we've definitely made the argument that
Yeah.
that money is,
Right.
taxpayer dollars are
Yeah.
not being
Yeah,
utilized, but.
exactly.
The momentum that Mass DEP showed at the last meeting was night and day compared to
Okay.
the first conversation, so I'm really feeling hopeful that they're
Have-
gonna.
Has someone pressed the point that the building's now open to weather? And that building was never tested on the inside, and I can tell you, I sat in DEP and PA 4 meetings with Denise, and one meeting, Mike Wood was there. And they said, as soon as that roof opens, and as soon as that weather goes in there, they don't know what's in there. They don't wanna reinvest again to go clean up that site again.
And that's
So water's going in,
the
water's
argument,
going out.
that's the argument that was made, is that
Okay,
the
perfect.
further deterioration of the building, and if you
Yeah.
drive by now, you'll actually see
Oh,
that
yeah.
the brick is falling out.
It's going out, it's imploding out, see him do that. As
So,
soon as it
but
imploded
it's
out.
even more so.
Yeah, I
So
saw it.
Mass DEP was saying that, an EPA was agreeing that
Yep.
if there's any way for them to declare it an emergency, again, I'm forgetting the
Exactly.
word.
And I know, I'm
They
with you.
would be able to put funds to take it down because EPA doesn't want to have to come in
Nope.
and
Reinvest.
re-clean the site
Yeah,
because of
reinvest
a
it.
building that's been, left there that
Yep.
nobody's done anything with.
Right. And what's unfortunate about the whole thing is, and I argued in those meetings, I argued with them, you can tell I am. But I like, wait a minute, you guys just spent a million something to clean this property and you're not gonna take that building away? And at the end, the building was in tough shape. And the guy goes, listen, we went in there with drones. We went in, we didn't go in the building, do any heavy testing. I go, why would you do that? That doesn't make sense. You have the problem still sitting there. And they go, that's the way it works. We do around the building and the land outside and that's it. He said, the day that building opens up and the day that building implodes outward, call us because we own it. And I've been gone 6 years. So it's gotta be 6, 7 years ago, we had that conversation, but it's gotta be somewhere on paper.
So they have a site visits coming up, that's gonna be scheduled in the next few weeks. So after that, we'll have a better understanding of where we stand.
Yep.
And I think.
Do
that it
you
will give us-
think in that site visit, it's worth getting anyone else we've talked to involved in, or just leave it the way it is?
I say for right now, it's just them. I know the building commissioner will be there. I know there's
Yep.
an environmental gentleman that we've been working with through the MVP. I know that Mass DEP will be there. I believe EPA might have a site representative out there.
Okay,
Once they do their site visit, that will give them a report that they'll send to the EPA.
so this is basically EPA and DEP, no state, no nothing, this is
And-
just them.
Well, Mass DEP is the state, but getting.
No,
them
no,
on the
you know what I'm
same
saying, it's
page.
not like,
Yes,
yeah, I'm with
because
you.
once Mass
It's cleanup
DEP,
only,
exactly, Mass DEP declares it, again, that term that I keep
Yeah.
escaping.
I know,
They will then, EPA will then allocate funds.
Right.
And then we can all get kind of more involved and see what
Exactly.
we can do. Because again, it's still private property. We don't own it.
I know. Now, that being said, would it be good to send the landowner a letter and say, listen, we're having this meeting?
He's
Can
already
you-
been sent a letter recently because of the further deterioration.
No, but I'm saying, get him to forgive the property over to DEP or EPA. Will he ever do that?
I highly doubt that the DEP or
Wants it.
or EPA will forgive liens for a private property owner who's directly responsible for the
No,
contamination.
but I'm saying, if the
Property.
private property owner gave that land to them, it doesn't work that way. You know what I'm saying? He just says, listen, I'm in over my head. I'll never pay
They're
this
not gonna
money.
assume the risk of the property.
They're not. Okay.
It's gonna be
they're
the
not.
town that's gonna wanna
That's
assume, they're putting the onus on us. If we want the
Right.
property, then we need to take the proper steps. They're not gonna take it for us.
That's stupid. But anyway. I was just thinking to get one person, I was just thinking get one person out of five, get rid of him somehow, but the town don't want that responsibility either.
But that's why we'd have to legally foreclose on the property in order
Right.
to do so, and then the liens come into play. So
Right.
that's kind of where the thought process is. If you get rid of the building,
Yep, I know what you're
you're
saying,
still taking on a risk.
But
It's
it's
far less
far less.
than what we would have to
When
spend.
at
on
that point, we're gonna know basically it's clean, basically it's
So
done.
they'll do the
now.
cleanup before we take ownership.
If
we're
they
hoping.
are, if they have enough funds to take down the building, they
Yeah.
will move forward with based upon this site analysis with Mass DEP and EPA.
Will that further the lien process?
So that will just-
Amount?
Well, that will just allow us to then, because they're using they're using specific money to the EPA that aren't Brownsfield site.
Yeah.
Because if there's Brownsfield money available, you have to.
Yeah,
be a
big
designated
process.
Brownsfield. Valley Screw is a Superfund site. Superfund sites don't qualify for Brownsfield monies, but there's another program that allows them to use monies to help clean up the site.
Okay.
Like this one that they're trying to capitalize on.
Yeah.
So the thought process is, again, that if Mass DEP and EPA can work together to help us get the building down, then we can start the foreclosure process. And then that way they'll forgive the liens based
Yeah.
upon an agreement of what we intend to do with the property.
Right.
If, whether or not we'll work with them, the 33% proceeds and an agreement that we come to, we can then kind of work on a parallel course of taking the property and then figuring out what we do next.
Okay. Good, well, cross our fingers. Okay.
Moving forward, I'll definitely, as soon as I get the site report and any documentation, I'll share it with the.
Okay, so we have to approve the minutes for the last meeting. I read them, they look good.
Yep.
Okay,
Make a motion to approve minutes from. the
Second.
Previous meeting.
all in favor, okay? At any other items response or reasonably anticipated at the time of posting? I'm good,
Yeah.
all right. Board members' time to speak out on any agenda items.
I had a question. Let me just finish. I'm trying to keep up.
I gotta slow down.
Yeah,
I feel bad.
that's okay.
Bring a recording for me.
Alright.
I hope it's not all bad stuff.
I had a question. So does Groveland fully utilize our local technical assistance from MVPC every year?
Yes.
Okay. When in the fiscal year are those decisions made as to like how you're gonna use that?
We usually only do when things come up. So I guess to answer your question, to go back, it's only when we need them, but we utilize them when we need them. So
Yeah.
if something comes up from a town planning perspective and we need to do additional mapping, or we need an additional layer added, or we want to explore a mobile application, then we'll just put in the request for hours and see whether or not the director approves, and then we sign off on it and move forward. For this specific, for Valley Screw, we couldn't because it's not a Brownsfield.
No, that's not what I was thinking of. What I was thinking of is, and it might be something that could be done with the online GIS. It's just be a matter of finding the time, but I'd be kind of interested to just have like, to look at every commercially zoned property in town and like have a series of maps just to help, like, where are the sites that are underutilized? Are there
Yeah.
opportunities we should be thinking about with regard
That's
to
a great idea.
zoning? And I feel like someone who's good at GIS, it wouldn't take them that long to put together like a map book
Yeah,
of like every commercial district.
and they're doing
And-
that as part of We Are MV too, because they're revitalizing that whole web.
They
page
have a
that
new
had.
economic development person. So
Exactly.
we might be able to ask them to do something like that without gobbling up. our-
Exactly, and I think they're
our
doing
GIS.
it for some of the smaller communities.
Like you guys probably know all this because you've lived here forever, but
Mhm.
where I'm new, I'm still trying to get my head around like,
Do you have someone in mind you could ask?
Yeah, I can reach out to the MVPC.
That's what I'm saying. Would you be able to do
Yeah.
that? Brad?
100%.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I think that'd be interesting, and it'd be something tangible that we could like point to and look at and
I think it's fantastic.
yeah, because if there's zoning districts that are like, you know, whether because of parking ratios or setbacks or whatever the case may
And a lot
be,
of-
that are inhibiting people from investing, those are the things that we should be like finding, so we can bring them to the planning board to say,
Mhm.
hey, we should really
In,
loosen this up, you know?
in.
And I don't know if there are opportunities, but
It might be fewer, but I agree with you. I think it's
Yeah.
great to have something like
There's a
that.
lot of properties in Groveland that are used for commercial space that are not being used correctly. We're not getting the vehicle tax and what have you and all that. I mean, it'd be nice to sometime go through and see what really goes on, but there's a lot of properties around that the town could be getting more money just on places people park and what have you. It's just like, we're missing out on a lot.
Yeah, I think the
think-
GIS idea is a great idea.
Yeah.
Anything that you can put aerial imagery and kind of use to your advantage of figuring it out how comprehensively it kind of fits
Right.
into the
I
grand
heard
scheme of thing is
A
really.
property up on Salem Street just sold and
Yes.
another property's moving from next door into that property. Opens that property up, which I heard they're trying to develop that, so we should keep an eye on that, what they're gonna put in there, because
100%.
I think there's a big plan for more contractors in that property, so.
Okay.
I mean, I just think it's money that we could be getting,
Yeah.
you know, we're gonna have contractors, we might as well try to utilize what we can.
Sounds good. I can do that.
Are you all good with that, Angus?
yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Does anyone have any time they want for the next meeting? Want me to come up with some dates like I always do and send them off and
That'd be great.
come back to me and say, yeah?
Mhm.
Sometime in April?
Yeah, if you want, I can
Yep.
send you my
Yep.
the nights I'm not available and then.
Okay.
So when is she, should we do it in, like, coordinate with when she's gonna have her thing or?
So she's gonna send it all out digitally, so you can put your
Okay.
digital like your individual comments, and then we'll make those comments on the actual document. Then
Okay.
it'll go to the select board. Then once it goes out, once it returns, then it'll come back to this board. So there might be a little bit of a lag in between that we can get together and discuss some of these other topics.
My question to you is, if you're a business owner, can you be on boards in town? Or you have to be a resident?
They created this particular committee with the understanding that they would be business owners that would not be Groveland residents.
Okay.
And again, one of the reasons that that's important is because it's an advisory. It's,
Yeah,
there's
no,
no
that's good.
decision-making power vested within the board.
All right, does anyone have anything else? Okay, what time we got?
6:38.
Make a motion to adjourn at 6:38.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Great.